Little Archie, issue 156. Little Sabrina and the Three Dwarfs. Since Sabrina's friends are stuck in the house with her when it's raining, Zelda decides to tell them a story ripping off Snow White. At least it'll only have 3 dwarves to cut down on padding and one-dimensional characters, but it's blatantly lazy to have a story that just rips off another one. It's the writer saying, "I give up." She tells a story about a little girl in a castle who works hard in the kitchen with a rolling pin, and it looks like Zelda to Sabrina. So Zelda's actually using magic to show the kids a hologram showing the story she's telling. And they must be pretty used to her magic by now if they don't even question it. We see that the queen looks like Sabrina and spends all day watching cartoons. Then she asks the magic mirror who makes the best pizzas. Thank goodness for any originality in the story. But why can't it go all the way then? Zelda's tired of having to make all of those pizzas. No wonder she's doing it the mortal way. She quits and sees a want ad in the newspaper conveniently telling her that there's an opening in the Three Dwarfs disco, which has a salad bar because their only customers are forest animals. Then the story gets lazy and has the dwarves be the Archies. I assume the animals can talk because they're not normal animals. So Queen Sabrina wants to get Zelda back and orders the royal carriage. Weatherby says that the disco's uphill and doesn't like having to pull Sabrina's carriage. A car's faster than this method. Surprisingly, Sabrina tells Zelda she won't have to cook any more pizzas for her since she's got a new way of doing things. Heating up TV dinners for Sabrina. So there's a happy ending. The kids are asleep for no reason at all, and Zelda wants to eat the pizzas Hilda brought home for the kids. This story was about Zelda telling a very original version of Snow White. With pizzas. And a salad bar. Little Archie, issue 157. The Right Mix. Zelda hears sputtering outside and assumes that someone outside is mixing potions too, because apparently that's the sound it makes. Sabrina says she can't get the lawnmower started. I think she's awfully young to have to do that. Why doesn't she just use magic to get it started? Instead, she's told to fill the mower with gas and finish cutting the lawn. Why doesn't Zelda cut the lawn with magic? She always uses magic in front of people. Sabrina says the gas can's empty, and suggests mixing up a substitute for gasoline. And she fortunately asks her for the gas can and flies off on a broom, planning on buying some for her. At first, someone wastes Zelda's time telling her to go away because he was scared by her flying over to him. When she tells him what she wants the gas for, she's surprised by the price of gas being higher than a quarter, and she gets told she needs to find a gas substitute. She flies away on a broom, finally planning to make a gas substitute. So the story lasted longer just because she needed some extra convincing to do something reckless that she was fine with doing in an earlier story, when she's normally a ditz in this comic. I'm guessing the gas substitute is gonna backfire, even though you'd think it wouldn't. Even Sabrina's smart enough to get worried about this. Then why did she tell her to do it? I guess she had some time to think about it and change her mind. You'd think they wouldn't need a gas substitute because they could just point to make the mower never run out of energy. Also, Zelda used magic off screen to give herself hair dye to look like Hilda. But that's not for the best because with her already having an unusual body shape, her green hair works pretty well with it distracting from that. By having a slightly more normal hair color, you're more focused on her other imperfections. It's like how it's good that Leela has purple hair because it goes well with her having one eye. Zelda mixes potions, uses magic, and pours it into the motor, and go figure she somehow made a mistake and the mower spews smelly smoke like a chemistry lab. You'd think if she was gonna do this, she would have looked in a potion book to know exactly what to do. I guess no witch discovered a potion that could be a substitute for gasoline. Naturally, because lawnmowers and stuff are built to handle gasoline in particular. So Zelda had to mix potions and experiment. This story had the lawnmower run out of gas, and instead of any witches using magic to instantly mow the lawn or make the lawnmower have gas, somehow Zelda decides to try to buy more gas, and when she's told how expensive it became, and she reacts as if she hasn't tried to buy gas since it costs a quarter, which would only really make sense if she moved away from Earth when it cost a quarter,
and then recently came back. She fortunately decides not to brainwash him into letting her buy it for a quarter. Instead, she wastes time trying to make a gas substitute with a potion and spell. It seems so redundant to have to say a magic spell as well as make a potion. Wouldn't the potion be magical and have that effect on its own? If not, why can't she just say the spell and have it work with anything? She's already using reality-altering magic. It took a while to get to a predictable ending after it took a while to get to Zelda deciding to do this, when normally she's a ditz in this comic who's very quick to using magic casually. You'd think Sabrina would just point to make the mower always run. Little Archie, issue 158. The Last Stand. Sabrina says there's nothing to do in the summer, and Hilda suggests getting a job. This story is more logic than the Super Witch one because it has Sabrina say she can't get a job as a kid. Zelda tells her she could give her a job cleaning up all of the apples under the tree. Then she uses magic to make them levitate. Then why bother telling Sabrina to do it if it's so easy for you? Zelda says an idea just popped into her head, and Hilda says, "Be careful, Zelda. It's in a strange place." Zelda remembers the lemonade stand she had at Sabrina's age. If you look it up, it turns out that the first time lemonade stands were referenced in the news was in 1879. So it could be plausible that she had a lemonade stand 200 years ago, if she was Sabrina's age 200 years ago. She makes an apple juice stand, and Sabrina sends a candle to fly into the sky and write a message advertising her stand. Realistically, they've got no customers 10 minutes later, and for some reason Zelda's stomping the apples. I thought she made all of the apples into juice for the stand the second that she summoned the stand with magic anyways. Hilda tells Zelda off for killing the apples, but she should know that's what you have to do to make apple juice. She tells Zelda she has to press all the apples, and when Zelda summons an iron, Hilda tells her to run the stand. Zelda tells Hilda, "Quick, apple juice!" and Hilda says they've got customers already. But in the entirety of the next page, we don't see any customers. Hilda keeps getting asked for apple juice, but it's only because their stand is on fire for some reason, and for some reason they're putting the fire out with apple juice instead of pointing to instantly get rid of the fire. I guess the fire got set by the candle falling back down to earth. If not, why would it be on fire? I guess there's witnesses to the fire across the street, so that's why they're doing this the mortal way. This story was confusing. Sabrina's bored in the summer, so her aunt suggests getting a job. And it is creative that they start an apple juice stand, but somehow, she doesn't also use magic to turn the apples into juice. And instead keeps trying to stomp the apples with her feet, even though they're hurting her feet. Despite Sabrina making a cloud advertisement, they get no customers. Which is believable because I guess apple juice isn't as popular as lemonade. Somehow. And somehow Zelda thinks she should put out a fire with apple juice. And it's awful nice of Sabrina's aunts to help her out with the stand while Sabrina's doing nothing. It defeats the point of her getting a job to have something to do if they do all the work because they've got nothing to do. Little Archie, issue 159, The Magic Fish. We're told that Riverdale is a fishing town apparently. Sabrina fishes up a fish that talks for no reason and offers to grant her a wish somehow if she spares him. Already the story lost me. Sabrina doesn't want to wish for anything because she's already a witch, and Jughead cleverly uses the wish before it's too late. He gets told to go home and look by the door to see more burgers than ever. Then out of sheer desperation, the rest of Sabrina's friends assume that they could get a wish for each of them too, when the fish only offered one wish, so this is pushing their luck. He's already magical enough to grant wishes. He could easily use magic against them too. In a callback to Some Change, Reggie wants to be a TV star, and he gets approached by a crew who immediately think that he looks right for their show from being brainwashed into it. So then he's somehow happy that he was on a show called Real Idiots Tonight. I'm missing out on story here because it doesn't tell me why they think he's an idiot. They don't know that he's stupid enough to waste time pranking people and ruining his own reputation and bragging. Other than that, he strikes me as the smartest one of the group because he knows Sabrina's a witch, and knows how to trick people with pranks in the first place. So I'd like to see what exactly the show called him out on. It could be just the fact that he's confident. People have a tendency to see someone bragging and then hate him and assume he's not so great because of that. because they see someone's bragging as implying that other people are lame by comparison get defensive. Veronica says there's something she's wanted for a long time, and Archie assumes it's him even though she already has him and is always gonna have him. All Veronica wants is a dress that she could easily buy. So it must be especially expensive if she hasn't bought it and was probably saving up for it. The fish gives her the dress instead of exclusive rights to Archie for the rest of her life, so that's convenient. She's so excited to show her father that she's gonna skip her date with Archie, when she could easily tell him that she'll go on it later that day. And the fish doesn't say anything after Betty says she'd like to go on a date with Archie, and he agrees happily. But he usually doesn't have hearts because of her, so maybe the fish did do that? It sure is convenient that Betty didn't wish that she always had Archie, which is something that you'd expect her to wish for. Sabrina somehow wonders how a fish could be happy, and she's told that he's just happy he wasn't eaten. It's surprising that the fish never lashed out for all of the wishes he was expected to grant, because he didn't seem happy about it. The concept of Sabrina fishing up a talking fish that wants to reward her reminded me of A Link to the Past. It makes me wonder if that concept's actually pretty common. Was this a reference to something I should care about? That still doesn't justify not explaining this fish existing on normal mortal Earth. It could so easily be explained that a witch created this thing. This story is about Sabrina conveniently fishing up a talking fish that grants wishes. And there's no attempt at explaining it. The existence of magic is the only reason it's a Sabrina story. But Sabrina never does anything with magic in it. Fortunately, Sabrina lets her friends get all of their wishes granted because she's that nice, instead of making them all forget the fish, which would have been more responsible to keep any of them from taking over the world. It's very convenient that none of them wished for things that would permanently alter the status quo. I'm surprised the story never had the fish get mad and get revenge or at least swim away, because that's what it was building up to. He asks Sabrina, "What is it this time?" and then asked her, "What's bugging you now?" But it was all pointless instead of him doing something epic like growing into a giant fish to threaten her. It makes sense that she'd know them well enough to know that they only want the one thing each of them always want and aren't about big ambitions. Except for Betty, her ambition is to marry Archie, so you'd think she'd wish for that. She should have explained that she doesn't think it'll be satisfying if she doesn't truly earn always having Archie at her side. I wish there was more focus on the details of Reggie getting his wish granted. How's he shown up as an idiot in that show? Little Archie, issue 160, the play's the thing. Sabrina's friends run away from her when she wants them to try out for the school play. I can't blame them. Archie at least apologizes, and Reggie says the coach just called football practice. Who calls their coach Coachy? Veronica and Betty are in the drama club, but they're also needed on the cheerleading squad. Dilton's in the auditorium because he heard there would be a drama club meeting. The play's for Hansel and Gretel, and there's a part for a chocolate rabbit for Dilton. I don't remember any chocolate rabbit in any of the parodies of Hansel and Gretel I saw, like AOSTH. And he's annoyed that he's going to be expected to jump around saying hippity hop looking like an idiot. She should have known he'd quit. Naturally thought the play would be a Shakespeare play. Yeah, why would they ever choose Hansel and Gretel? At least the choice of play was creative. Sabrina says she was going to have everyone work on scenery, and uses magic to build a witch's house of cake and candy. She took one too many panels to do that. Weatherby smells the house, and the football team does too, and they all head for the house, which I assumed wouldn't have a strong scent because there's no reason for her to make it made out of warm, freshly baked cake. Sabrina doesn't want them to eat it, and she gets volunteers because they want a chance to eat it. The story ends with what's supposed to be the entire audience eating the cake house. This story has Sabrina fail at getting anyone to volunteer for a play. It's certainly a refreshing twist to see that. There's so many different stories where characters put on a school play and it just so happens to be the characters you already know about who are participating. Like Arrested Development, Carl Squared, Sabrina's 70s cartoon. But this completely avoids doing another one of those stories where the characters rip off a plot of Shakespeare's. I don't have my time wasted with characters reciting hammy dialogue in old-fashioned English. And since it's a comic, I don't hear bad acting either. It was creative that it was a play about Hansel and Gretel instead, even if it was lazy to reference the story again in the comic. Sabrina had no excuse for making the cake house she summoned have a strong scent to it, that enticed everyone to eat it instead of doing what she wanted. If she wanted them all at the play, she would have just brainwashed them to come to the play because they wanted to see it. I thought it had no sense because candy isn't known for being warm, and if the cake was warm, it melts the candy in the house's walls. So the house shouldn't have been warm in the Hansel and Gretel tale. I assume the reason that absolutely nobody volunteered for the school play is that nobody liked Sabrina's ideas for it, based on Dilton's reaction.